to move to completely something different.
All right.
I am fascinated by the human brain. And I'm curious, is there a difference between the brain in a black man and the brain in a white person?
All right. The brain actually, irrespective of whether you are black or you are white, is the same brain.
Whether you are poor or you are rich, we all have the same brain.
Same brain
Okay.
that has the same components, except for someone who have maybe a congenital abnormality,
Okay.
all right, or that have other diseases that have affected the brain. But anatomically, every man's brain is the same in terms of different components, all right, okay, so we have different parts of the brain. Generally, we can divide the brain into, okay, let me use a few neurological terms. We can divide the brain into what we call cortical, subcortical, and the brain stem, all right, okay. So what does that mean? Cortical is the upper part of the brain where we talk about the frontal lobe, the frontal cortex, the parietal lobe, the temporal lobe, the occipital lobe. This part of the brain play different roles. The subcortical areas, like where we call the basal ganglia, that contains different components, including thalamus and all that. The brainstem, largely, that's where we have the cerebellum, where we have the medulla, where we have the pons, where we have the midbrain. Even though the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla majorly make up the brainstem, but the cerebellum is also there. So all these parts of the brain, whether in a black man, whether in a white man, whether in the rich, the poor, is the same thing. And that's why if there's an illness, right, that affect any particular parts, the manifestation, whether in a black man, in a white man, is the same, because the brain is the same.
So when it comes to intelligence,
Yeah.
when it comes to smartness,
Mm.
is because at times, when you talk to people, they will say your brain is not functioning well. That is why you are poor, or that is why you are not smart. Is our brain responsible for any of these things?
All right. You know that generally in medicine we talk about environment and genetics. So an interplay of environment and genetics. So even in people's smartness, intelligence quotient, it's a function of environment and genetics. Some people may have inherent intelligence, but they were not opportune to be exposed to an environment that helped them develop it.
Like many people in Nigeria?
All right. So that could be.
Really?
All right. So they may not be privileged to be in an environment that helped them develop that intelligence that they have. That may make them underperform. But someone could also have an average intelligence and have opportunities that help develop. And you see that person like a high flyer. All right. So there's a relationship between environment and the genetic makeup of an individual to determine their output.
Wow. So could this be the reason why you find some people that are underperforming, let's say in Nigeria, for example, now, but when they come to a better environment like in the US,
Yeah.
and you see them at the top of their profession?
Yeah. Yes, that's contributory. You see, because you see, this person have the capacity, but he didn't have that opportunity to be exposed to all what he or she needs to do well. And now they just come into that and they are now exposed to those things they didn't even have opportunity to be exposed to. You see them performing very, very well. And it actually is a clear challenge that we have, particularly transiting from resource-constrained environments like Africa, Nigeria inclusive, to where you have opportunities to whatever you really need to do well. It's usually a challenge.
Now, let's talk about the fear that everybody is avoiding, dementia. In fact, I am laughing because I remember a statement that somebody very close to me said, even when I'm old and I cannot remember my name, I hope you will be there for me. What is dementia And is there a difference between forgetfulness and early dementia?
All right, thank you very much. Dementia is also a neurological problem. In dementia, when we actually say someone has dementia, it's just far, far beyond forgetfulness.
Okay.
And it's also important for me to say at this point that dementia is not synonymous with aging.
Really?
Okay. Well, I use the word synonymous.
Okay.
Even though aging is a risk factor for dementia, but dementia is not synonymous with aging. Sometimes people say, oh, he's forget his normal thing since he's already 70, he's 80. So if he's forgetting, it's normal. All right. So dementia is not synonymous with aging. But when we talk about dementia, dementia is a neurological problem where people have two or more domains. Okay, I will explain all that in detail. Where people have two or more domains affected, all right, affected, such that also their activities of daily living is impaired. And I will explain. Now, when we talk about domain, dementia is not just about memory. Dementia affect different domains like cognition, which include memory, which include attention, which include language, which include concentration, which include abstraction. All right. Abstraction is something like you ask somebody, if a lion comes in here, what will you do? And I have patients that will tell you, if a lion comes in here, I will just hold it. All right. So you know that person have issues with abstraction.
And that is a sign of dementia.
Yes. All right. So someone with dementia will have two or more of these domains affected.
Okay.
All right. For you to say that person have dementia. So now every one of us could forget at one time or the other. All right. But in dementia, it's not just mere forgetfulness, it's forgetfulness that is now affecting daily activities. It's forgetfulness that is now affecting capacity of that person to do many things independently.
Wow.
Even though in dementia also there's staging, there's early stage of it. But even before the early stage, there's what we call mild cognitive impairment. All right. So mild cognitive impairment, it's the early stage where people in the initial period, what they may be having they have conversation with you and they will not remember they had that conversation with you. In the early stage, they may drop their keys or their money and will not remember. In the early stage, they may do some transaction with you and ask you how far about that transaction. When you say, but we've concluded that yesterday, they say, oh, we never did anything like that. So that may be early stage. But it can progress to the point where this same person will not be able to carry out his daily activities any longer. In fact, sometimes it can progress to the point where they can't even remember the names of their children. They can't remember even their bank accounts. They can't remember, they can't even use their phones to get their contacts and call. If you are talking with them, they are tangential, they deviate, they can't sustain conversation. All right. So it can progress to that. So dementia is not just mere forgetfulness, even though patient with dementia might have forgetfulness, but it goes beyond forgetfulness to several other things. And to also say that patient with dementia, some dementia may even start more with behavioral problem than even memory. Right? There are different kinds of dementia. Like patient with what we call frontotemporal dementia, they will have more behavioral problem. They are suspicious. They have hallucination. They will say, oh, they want to kill me. This person want to kill me. This person want to kill me. Sometimes even when they are watching television, they will say that they are talking about me. They are planning to kill me. Their memory, if you can ask them things, they can still interact with you. But they are suspicious. They are hallucinating. So patient with dementia can present differently.
So those are signs of somebody suffering from dementia.
Yes, because there are different kind of dementia. And so that's where a specialist need to now see the patient, take a proper history, and be able to tease out the particular type of dementia that person have, so that the patient can be treated appropriately, as it were.
So what is one of the biggest mistakes that families make when caring for somebody with dementia?
All right. Yeah. It can be quite, sometimes it can be overwhelming. Sometimes I have some patients that relatives will feel that this man is pretending.
Wow.
They feel that he's pretending. They feel that he's just doing it himself. All right. So sometimes families make this mistake of thinking that this patient is pretending. It's not pretense. There's a real problem. And the earlier they understand that there's a problem, the earlier they can address it. Sometimes you have, a woman, maybe she eats, and by the time you come back and ask her, she will tell you she has never eaten since today. And everybody be angry. This mama is telling lies. She's not saying the truth. The mama is demented. She didn't even remember she has eaten. Right. So it's just to understand that this woman have a problem, and if you realize she have a problem, then that's when you can seek for solution, and that problem can be addressed. So I think it's important that family should not just think that this is mere pretext. They should know that there's a real challenge these patients have and seek for solution.
Can dementia be prevented?
Yes, good enough. A lot of studies are ongoing, but I will first come from the angle of what we call brain health. The WHO, the International Brain Research Organization, and several of the societies, there's a lot of drive to maintain good brain health. So one of the things to do is still the basic things we've talked about.
Okay.
All right. People ensuring they have good blood pressure, people ensuring they have diabetes, they control it well, sleeping well, avoiding alcohol, avoiding cigarettes, exercises, avoiding overweight, right? This basic lifestyle and diet, avoiding high salt diets, high cholesterol diet, all these basic lifestyle, including control of chronic illnesses, are essential to control or to prevent dementia. Now, few other things that have also been said that are very, very important. Two more things I want to say.
Okay.
Studies have shown that literacy is protective.
Okay.
All right, literacy, reading, games, and secondly also interaction. So loneliness promotes dementia. So when people have social interaction, social network, they relate with others, they attend fellowship, they attend church services, they relate with family, with friends. They don't stay alone. They have people they interact with. It's said that also protects against dementia.
Well, let's move to another issue, a pain that people have come to normalize, and that is headache and migraine. At what point does a headache stop being just normal but now becomes a neurological warning?
All right. Now, headache is a very common complaint. All right. It's a common medical symptom. It's also a common complaint that people who come to the hospital, even in the outpatient setting of general family clinic, present with. But it's important to note that not all headaches are normal. People could have headache when they have flu. People could have headache when they have malaria. People could have headache when they have even more serious things like meningitis. People could have headache when they have more serious things like a stroke. So it's important to note that all headaches are not normal. And that's where history is very, very cardinal. Few 30 symptoms as associated complaints will make you know exactly the type of headache. Now, generally, we classify headache into primary and secondary headache. Secondary headache is all this kind of headache I've talked about, from malaria, from flu, from meningitis. It means there's something causing that headache. And if you address that, that headache will be controlled. But there's group of headache we call primary headache. Here in primary headache, you cannot pinpoint the exact cause. And that's where things like migraine comes in. Things like tension type headache comes in. Things like cluster headache comes in. So all these are primary headache, right? They have peculiar ways that they present. And even though, yes, primary headache is commoner in women and also commoner even in young women of childbearing age, okay? But there are ways they present that you will know that this is migraine, and there are things to do to control it or to even manage the acute symptoms when they present with it.
So talking about these different types of headache and taking some medication, why is it that some headache will refuse to go away no matter what medication people are taking?
Yeah, so that's where knowing the type, whether it's primary, for instance, somebody who has primary headache from maybe a type of stroke we call subarachnoid hemorrhage, all right? If you have not addressed the primary cause, which is a bleeding into the brain, all right, and you just give normal analgesic that you give, it may not handle it, all right? But a patient that has something like migraine,
Okay.
which is a type of primary headache, there are drugs that are specific for migraine. A lot of studies have shown what we call the pathophysiology, the basis of that migraine. So there are drugs that are suitable for migraine. So if you give those drugs, you will see that this headache will be controlled. So that's why in practice, actually, it is important to know, to take good history, to be able to know the particular type of headache you are dealing with. And if you manage it with the appropriate medication, that headache will be controlled. Yeah, a few times people may have a recalcitrant one. Yes, then you may also need to find out. Sometimes some of these people are also taking substances. All right, somebody who have migraine and is taking substances. In fact, some of them, caffeine can trigger the headache. All right, so somebody who has migraine that is triggered by caffeine and the person likes coffee. So lifestyle modification, you must stop coffee. If you stop coffee, you see the headache go down aside the drugs. So it's to also identify the triggers and take care of the triggers, and you will see the person will do well.
Talking about triggers, are there some food or habits that fuel chronic headache?
Yes, there are. So like I've talked about something like coffee.
Okay.
Even in ladies, some chocolates.
Really?
Some chocolates can trigger migraine in some people.
Wow.
Some habits, yes, incidentally migraine, whether oversleeping or not sleeping well, either of them can trigger migraine. So
Really?
it's just to know, yes, some people that have migraine, when they sleep too much, their migraine headaches start. Some people that have migraine when they are stressed, all right, they have not slept well, so their migraine headache. So it's to identify the trigger and contain the trigger, and they will be fine. Aside the drugs that are specific for treating those kind of headaches.
Talking about brain, earlier on I said I'm fascinated by brain, and you have told me earlier on that there is no difference in you use a time I can't remember now, between a white man or a black man or a rich man or a poor man, that we all have the same kind of brain. But when you now look at this current age that we are in, the age of information overload, is social media and the internet as a whole, and the modern life that we live, is it overstimulating our brain beyond what they were designed for?
All right. Yeah. Now, very important. The social media is good. Information technology is good, but you know that everything has its merits and demerits.
Okay.
All right. For instance, even in normal persons, being on the phone 247 has also deleterious effects, whether to the eyes, whether to the brain. So there must be also there must be a balance. As good as these tools are very good, they make learning better, they make information much more available. But for instance, I will use where we are as a university lecturer. We have students now who have their phones there. They can browse at any point. They can get every information they need. But you realize that they are still performing poorly. Why? Some of these students, they watch movies instead of reading their books. Some of these students, they ping, they browse all through. They don't read their books. The information is there. They could get even some of the things that are in their notes or in their books, they could get it through the social media, but they are misusing it. All right. So social media is very, very good. Okay, but a lot of misuse. But again, there must also be a limit to even the time of exposure. One cannot be on the phone 247 because there's a minimum number of hours you should sleep as a person. So when you are not getting even those number of hours as a person, you realize that even your brain capacity, your brain function will be affected.
Really?
Yes.
I hope somebody is listening to
Yes.
it and,
Yes.
looking at me can really
Yes.
hear that. I
Yes.
take it to heart. And for our viewers too, that staying too long on your phone have a detrimental effect on your health and on the functioning of your brain.
That's true.
So I'm really curious about this, that the constant use of phone can physically change the brain function. Talk to me more about this, sir.
Okay. Yeah. There have been there are a lot of researches. Okay. Constant use of phone for different purposes. In fact, I wouldn't want to go into even the negative use
Okay.
where people use it for other things like pornography. And some researches have even shown that those who use it for that purpose, their brain, even when you do the MRI scan of the brain, you realize some parts of their brain is even appears, which word would I use now? Shrunken compared to what it should be normally. The size, the volume has reduced. All right.
I'm interested in that.
Yes.
Let's take it again.
Okay.
That people who use their phone or whatever means
Yes.
for pornographic activities,
Yes.
that it's exposure to that
Yes.
shrink the volume of their brain.
Yes, it shrinks the volume of their brain, particularly part of the brain that is responsible for learning, that is responsible for retaining capacity. It actually shrinks the volume of the brain, and some studies have shown that.
So it is not just it is not just that, oh, God doesn't want you to do this thing, but health-wise,
it is
exposure to pornography and things like that,
yeah,
negatively affects the human brain.
Yes, it does negatively affect the human brain, and if some studies have also shown that even this group of persons, those who were even high flyers before, you will see a progressive decline even in their academic performance.
Wow.
With exposure to pornography. All right. So social media can be good, but we must know that there are also, when it's wrongly used, it also have negative impacts on the brain, and ultimately negative impact on even the performance of that person, whether academically and in every other aspect of the person's life. So studies have shown that very clearly.
Because a lot of young people, they live on the internet. And, when the scripture talks about that there is pleasure in sin, even though it's for a little while, can you talk more about this in relation to the temporary enjoyment that people get, but then the side effect on their health, on their productivity is much more than the benefit. From a neurological perspective.
Yeah, just like you said, the Bible talks about, can a man carry fire in his bosom and will not be burnt? Right? Exposure to social media is good, but good use of it is important. And good use of it will imply using it for the right thing, using it for things that will be beneficial, using it because we can learn a lot of things through social media. Even as a Christian, you can use that to read your Bible, you can listen to music, you can listen to edifying, watch edifying music. But be that as it may, this must not be done 247 because the brain will also need rest. Now, but where people also use it negatively, particularly for pornography, in the immediate period, they get infatuated, they get this relief. And unfortunately also from, I do a lot of work with young people. I've realized that many of these young people are also involved in pornography. They're also involved in masturbation. So you see that it appears they get this immediate satisfaction from themselves by watching pornography, by masturbating. But ultimately, like I said, it's been shown that even the volume of the brain decreases. That's one. But secondly, if you see those people, if you train them, you will see a progressive decline in even their academic performance.
Wow.
We see a progressive decline in their performance academically. And a lot of studies have also shown that. And from my personal experience, teaching students for this should be over how many years? 6, 7 years. Have also seen a lot of students in the course of interacting with them that once they are involved in this, you will see how they go down progressively, gradually, and all that. So it's a big problem, particularly among young people. But I want to say to the young people, assuming you are trapped in the web of pornography, you can be free, you can be freed. All right? Don't remain in that web. You need to open up. All right? I'm sure you may have one or two persons who can help you out, who understand that the way out of this actually is when you run to the Lord. The way out of this is when you meet the right people with the word of God. You can be free. You can be delivered from pornography. You can now be taught how to use the social media, how to use the internet properly to edify yourself, all right, to build up your spiritual life, and also within limited time, not 247, because 247 is also not good. It won't give you space to sleep. It won't give you space to rest, because all this is also important for proper functioning of the brain.
Because the brain also has a limit, and if you
Yes.
overwork it,
even if you overwork it, if you overstress it, you realize that you get to a point you can't even retain anything. You'll be confused, right? You can't retain anything. You'll be confused. So, but when there's a minimum hour of rest for an adult, at least 6 to 8 hours, minimum of 6 hours. So if you are getting less than that because you're on the internet, then it won't be very good at all.
okay. Why do so many high-performing people feel mentally drained? They cannot even explain why.
All right. Yeah, I think most times it may still relate to what we say. They are stressed. They are trying to meet targets. All right. They say, I must finish this. And so there's no rest. Okay. So they get to a point where they feel really exhausted. And truly speaking, once the brain is fatigued, once the brain has reached its elastic limit, it will only be a drag. All right. It will only be a drag. I think that's a major matter. So it's very important that there should be this balance.
Okay.
There should be balance of work and balance of rest. And that's what the Bible says. There's time for everything. There's a time to rest. there's a time to work. All right. So time for rest, you should rest. Time for work, we should work. That balance is important because when you rest, you realize that you are fresh to even work better. But when you struggle to work all through, even when you are tired, even your productivity and your output will be suboptimal. So I think that's
So as I begin to wrap up now, when you look at your career, what impact do you hope your work has made on people, on how they understand the brain?
all right. Even though we are still growing, we thank God for where God has brought us, and we are still looking forward to greater things ahead. But in the short time practicing as a neurology, by God's grace, one, I think by His grace, we've been able to first affect lives, affect patients by God's grace. Not actually, not blowing our trumpet. I think one of the things God have helped us to do in our workspace first, because in our workspace where we interact with patients, is to shine as a light,
Okay.
not first even in preaching, but first even in our work, just doing the work. Remember, a few weeks ago before I traveled down to US, they invited me to see a patient somewhere. And when I entered into that room, a man looked at me and said, "Oh, I saw you some time ago. I was very sick in the teaching hospital. And the moment you walked into the emergency room, you were with a lot of students, a lot of other young doctors. And I was praying that you should just come to my bed, because when I saw you, I felt that once you come to my bed, I will be fine." And by the time I interacted with him, I realized his problem was surgical. I'm a neurologist, medical. So I said, "Oh, sorry, I wish I came to your bed, but I didn't come because I didn't." Usually when you go to emergency, your young doctors take you to the beds that actually is where you have patient. But I'm sure there was something he saw.
Definitely.
Right. So by God's grace, God has given us this privilege that even when we see patients, we see them by His grace with some finesse, with some excellence, with giving them hope, making them know that this problem you have is not final. God can take you out of it. And we've seen a lot of them, God helping them come through. That, in fact, I remember the other time I went to a market with my daughter, and she said, "How come everybody know you in this market? By the time you walk this distance, somebody will say doctor. The next time somebody will greet you doctor. No, how come you know everybody?" I say, "Sorry, many of them I don't actually know, but it's them that know me, and we just do what we are supposed to do, give them the best that we can." Sometimes people say also, "Oh, you work too much. You just work and work. You don't have closing time." I say, "Oh, what do? I need just to do my best as God has given us opportunity." So that's where we are. Secondly, we also think that we have a responsibility to impart younger ones. And that was the drive to move from Federal Medical Center, where we were, to the teaching hospital, to the university, because we think we need to replicate ourselves, the skill, the knowledge God has given us. We must also raise other younger generation. And to the glory of God, we have such, even though part of the challenge we have is the Japa syndrome, the immigration. In fact, the other day I was traveling to Phoenix, and while I was in the airport, one of the young men that were training to be a neurologist, who is now in UK, called me and said, "Oh, God, thank God, I'm grateful to you. How I went to UK, and in fact, where they started me was at a higher level. I went for the exam first hand. I passed the exams, and he was grateful." I said, "Thank God." It gives us satisfaction that we are training younger people. We are raising people that we are confident that can do almost exactly what we are doing. All right. So it gives us joy and satisfaction. And aside that also, apart from even our practice, even among those students and residents, we're also imparting the life of Christ. Because I tell them, whatever difference you see in our practice, whatever makes us distinct is because of Christ that we have. All right? We have come to know that we now have a new life. Christ resident inside of us is actually the doctor. Christ resident inside of us is the lecturer that goes to class. Christ resident inside of us is the one that does all these things that we do. So, by the grace of God, we also try to impart. In fact, one of the vision God gave us when we entered into the university, into the teaching hospital, is to raise replacement sons, is to raise doctors who will be light, who will be salt of the earth. And to the glory of God, we have a crop of young people, medical students, nursing students, and young doctors who also are coming to understand this Christ life, that this life has to be evident everywhere you go, not just the clinical knowledge, but clinical knowledge backed with compassion of Christ.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, I am tempted to ask two more questions, then we'll wrap up.
All right.
Being in a medical teaching institution, how do you feel that after training medical students in different fields in medicine, they will now japa, they will now find a greener pasture? What can be done to stop this brain drain?
Yeah, it's actually saddening. It's saddening because you are pouring, as like I said, you are pouring your life, you are pouring your knowledge, you are putting everything that you have into them with the mind that you will have people who will also to relieve the pressure so that you can do several other things. Administrative work is also coming up and all that. But that's where we are. But I think one, government have a lot of role to play. All right. Yeah. Everybody may not be like myself, who will say, "Oh, I can't move until I hear God speak to me." Everybody cannot be like that. Few others may have a leading to move. All right. But I think government can do a lot to stem this tide. To understand that it takes so much to train medical manpower. And when these people are trained, it's necessary to do everything possible. Good remuneration, we keep people. Making the environment conducive, having, part of the challenge is that even functionality of the place. Sometimes you want to do some things, there's no light. So you are stranded. Things that you could have done within 30 minutes and get done with it. In the next 2 hours, you are still waiting because you are waiting for light. This is not available. So I think government will have a lot of role to play to make social amenities available, to have good pay for medical cadre of medical personnel, whether doctors, whether nurses, whether all calibers of medical personnel. That's the only way we can retain this workforce.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
On a last note, if there is somebody out there that is watching this video and the person is silently scared and worried about their brain and how effectively their brain is functioning and their health in general, neurologically, what would be your advice to them?
All right. There's no reason to be scared. There's no reason to be worried. But I think basically, if you are, you can actually reach out to a neurologist. I'm sure wherever you reside, you can find one neurologist. You can talk to them. I know many of them are friendly, they are accessible, and they will reassure you again. They will check, actually. And many of these issues are things that can be addressed. They are things that can be handled. And I think there's no reason to be worried. And more so, coming to know the Lord will make a lot of difference. All right. So I think that we bring a turning point also in your own life as a person. If you are worried, if you are concerned and afraid, and I think the Lord can also address your fears, but you can also reach out to a neurologist nearby. They can assess you and reassure you that there's really no cause for alarm.
Thank you. And on that note, we'll wrap up this edition of The Voyage, talking about the trials, the transitions, and the triumph. Just like we've said, the human brain also go through seasons of trials, transitions, and triumph. But it all depends on how you use your brain, how you take care of your brain, how you feed your brain, so that your brain can serve you well. If there is one thing today's conversation reminds us of, it is that brain is powerful, but also fragile. And so much of what shapes our future health is hidden in the small daily choices we overlook. What stood out to me in this conversation is not just what, Dr. Uwozo talked about as a neurologist, but what he has learned as a human being, right? Working alongside people in their most uncertain moments. So maybe if this episode challenged you, an assumption that you've held, or maybe it answered the questions you've been quietly asking, or maybe it simply made you to pause and listen to your own body a little more closely. Well, maybe that pause actually matters. So if this conversation helped you, kindly share it with someone you care about, right? And if you believe in conversations that don't rush truth, but makes us to actually reflect and that remind us that we are all on a journey. Subscribe to The Voyage, Trials, Transition, and Triumph. Until next time, take care of your mind, take care of your body, and be gentle with yourself along the way. I will see you on to the next voyage.